I have a couple videos on the channel about using a multi-zone home theater. In my setup, I have a dedicated theater room right below me here in the basement, and then of course my 2-channel big OLED television living room. And I have some sources historically that I've wanted to access in both spaces, like the Kaleidoscape. One method is using the Zone 2 outputs of your preamplifier or your receiver in serving 2 zones with HDMI. But for gaming specifically, I've been playing around with something else for a while, and I really wanted to kind of break it down now, show it off. I think I've got a good handle on how it works, and give it actually a really strong recommendation. So one of the things that I was trying to achieve in this experiment, in this setup, was taking like a game console. In this case, I've got a PlayStation 5 running Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart here behind me, and have that be resident in one room. In this case, it's here in the living room. I'll show you where in a second. And be able to use the same console, same controllers in both rooms. There's a lot of efficiency for that, meaning you don't have to buy 2 systems. You can take advantage of quick resume. You don't have to have multiple extra sets of controllers. If you want to expand storage, you only have to buy 1 SSD to expand storage in 1 system instead of 2. You only have 1 system to manage for updates and downloads and all that sort of thing. So I think it plays a lot better to be able to use 1 source device in a lot of cases and distribute it to 2 areas. One of the main things that I've done with Zone 2 has been Kaleidoscape. A Strato player alone is a $3,000 endeavor. Do I really want to buy another Strato for my living room where I hardly use it? Not really, but I would like to be able to access it here, and I can do that for basically free with Zone 2s. But the way that I've been solving this for the gaming setup has been experimenting with an HDMI splitter. For about 75 bucks, I was able to pick up a splitter on Amazon. EZCOO, EZCOO was the brand, fully capable for HDMI 2.1, VRR, 4K 120, 48 gigabit HDMI bandwidth, and all of that stuff perfectly tuned for video game use. And it even had programmable EDID information. You can select from like 6 different levels of EDID depending on what your displays are. One of the big challenges you get into with taking 1 source and trying to connect it to 2 zones is you may have very different video capabilities between your zones, and I have that as well. This LG G2 behind me can do a whole lot more for gaming than my JVC NX7 projector in the basement can. We have ALLM, we have VRR, we have HDMI 2.1 and 4K 120 capability on the TV. We have none of that on the projector in the basement. It's capping out at 4K 60, 18 gigabit HDMI bandwidth. So in cases like that, it's nice to be able to have 1 common HDMI information signal going to basically both display devices and setting things up with kind of 1 common set of settings. Otherwise, what you find when you're using 1 source between 2 different places, dynamically having it resync and reconfigure itself for each of those HDMI connections is like every time you turn it on, you're going to have different configurations or perhaps misconfigurations. If the console's set up for things like VRR, then you go to use it in the theater room, that's got to be disabled, and you have to mess around with some stuff. I found in the cases of the consoles like the PlayStation specific, if you're just doing a switch, every time you change display, you boot up your PlayStation, you're going to have the HDR calibration screen presented to you, and you're going to have to reset the black level, the brightness pieces, and all of that sort of thing. Whereas if you use something like the splitter and you present a constant connection HDMI information set, you can do that configuration. You can do all of that setup once, and it just kind of always works. It works really great. And if you're trying to do something like this, honestly, I would highly recommend it. I think using the splitter has a number of virtues, as we've been talking about, that sets it actually above even trying to use the Zone 2. Even if you have the Zone 2, you might actually want to consider just going the splitter route, especially for the cost. I mean, 70 bucks. And if you don't need HDMI 2.1, you're trying to split something less than that. EZCOO on Amazon, they have even cheaper ones that are HDMI like 2.0A, 18 gigabit per second as well. I'm seriously consider maybe in just picking up one of those actually for the Kaleidoscape. Because another thing that I wasn't too enamored with all the time using the Zone 2 is I'm in this room, but I'm using a Zone 2 of another preamplifier, so I'm turning more things on in my system to try to put them in their Zone 2 mode just to switch something. I feel like there's just more consistency and less complexity just going through the fixed splitter where everything is set and everything is always good to go. We'll do some real-time demonstrations here. I am in Ratchet and Clank. As you can see, playing live, set up on the PlayStation 5, which is the new Slim behind me. Let's take a look where it is and how that splitter is actually configured. Okay, so we're here. Again, I'm trying to do this all in as much real time as possible. Right behind the television, I got the PlayStation 5 mounted in a hide-it mount. And I know I'll get the comments, does that really work? Do controllers work? Does it get too hot? It works fantastic. It's right up behind the top corner edge of the TV. Controller reception is no problem at all. You can still access the front of the system for the USB ports if you need it. And I've never had any trouble with heat. Cool air is blowing in here. It's blowing out the back. It works really great. We can see some of the cabling coming off of the PlayStation 5 there. We've got power. The green cable is a wired Ethernet connection. The top connection is HDMI. It goes along, and I've got some Velcro strips kind of holding that up to the wall. And that little box there with the little hint of red is the EZCOO HDMI splitter. We're going in on the right side from the PlayStation, and then out on the other side is two HDMI lines. One is running right into the inputs of the LG G2, and then that silverish cable is an RUI Pro, their newer version, HDMI 2.1 certified fiber optic long distance HDMI cable that's snaking down to my rack, and it inputs into the Anthem AVM90 to put the PlayStation signal in on the theater. Now I am using the fixed EDID on the EZCOO splitter there, and because again of the limitations of the JVC projector, I am limiting the capabilities of the PlayStation 5. It's set up for 4K 60, 18 gigabit HDMI max bandwidth. It is doing Dolby Atmos, which is cool. That means I get the full capability of the sound in my theater room, but I'm not using VRR. I'm not using the 4K 120, unfortunately. It means I don't get the cool 40 FPS modes that games are capable of on the PlayStation 5. If I were using an upgraded projector, like say an Epson LS 12000 or a JVC NZ series, then I would in fact be able to swap up to a different EDID setting and be able to do at least the 4K 120. Of course, still no VRRs. We don't have that in projectors, but that's the setup. I do want to show off the PlayStation audio and video settings really quick. So we're going to go into the PS5. We're going to go into video output, take a look at the current video output signal, and we can see 4K, 60 Hertz, YUV422, and HDR. So again, we're not using the 48, well, PlayStation can't even do 48, it can only do 32, but we're not using the greater than 18 gigabit bandwidth capabilities of the PS5 because we are limited by the projector downstairs. So resolution fixed to 4K, VRR turned off, 120 Hertz output turned off, ALLM turned off, 4K video transfer rate set to automatic. Now on my PlayStation, just again because of the simplicity of all of this, I just leave HDR always on. For gaming systems, I don't have a problem having them generally always output HDR. I do this with my PC as well. And if the game is in SDR inside the HDR container or whatever, it tends to work. And these other settings, deep color output, RGB range, also set to automatic. Let's take one quick look at sound, audio output. We are outputting, in this case specifying an AV amplifier, and if we go down, our audio format output is set to Dolby Atmos. This is a great feature of this LG television in particular, that even though I have a 2.2 channel audio system in my living room, the LG television on its HDMI inputs from sources can take a Dolby Atmos signal. It will down mix it to a losslessly down mixed full frequency, full bandwidth 2.0 audio signal. I don't lose any bass, I don't lose anything, and generally again get the highest quality audio. But we are piping the Dolby Atmos out for the fully featured multi-channel Atmos home theater audio system down in the basement. So that's it for the settings. Let's take a walk downstairs and show that in fact we're gaming in two zones right now simultaneously. All right, so here we are. We're going to take a little walk together from the living room down to the theater. I got my son just playing some Ratchet and Clank there. Excuse the mess. We're in the middle of getting set up for the holidays. You get a chance to see some of the Techthusiasm home. We're going to take a quick turn here. We're going to walk through some of the house, get to the basement stairs. There's the entryway to the theater. I don't have a gimbal, so sorry if this is coming off a little bit shaky. And as we enter the room we're on, and then, boom, there we go, Ratchet and Clank. That PlayStation 5 runs through the splitter, coming down to this room. I'm gonna turn the volume down actually. Simultaneous output to 2 zones, running to the LG G2 and the JVC NX7. 4K 60, 18 gig bandwidth set up. HDR working fine. Dolby Atmos in the theater room working fine. One of the other things that I've talked about on the channel is trying to do this with some sources when I actually have them down in the basement but playing up in the living room when they're in my storage rack, which is on the other side of the wall here right behind the screen. And I've had some trouble getting controller reception from the living room over to the storage room, but I can say from our testing so far, bringing the PlayStation controllers down here to the theater with the system essentially directly above us on this side wall here, directly above, even a little bit behind the television where we have it, it works fantastic. We hadn't have any controller dropouts or anything like that. I can't recommend this method enough. I think this is really the way to go, and again, I think it has plenty of virtues over doing a zone 2 switching type thing. In a lot of cases, when you're switching things to multiple zones, you do have to be careful about accessing those devices. Are you going to need to plan to access the same source simultaneously in both places, or are you going to use it in one zone or the other? That may affect some of your setup and some of your decisions as well. But what I'm looking for in all of this is just absolute simplicity. I don't want to have to mess with things. I don't want to have to change settings. I don't want to have to grab my remote and set this and set that in order to make things work and to make being able to game down here possible, because we do the majority of our gaming upstairs in the living room. Despite this room being what it is, despite the bigger screen and the surround sound audio, man, the quality, the fidelity, the feedback, the response time, and all of that of gaming on that panel upstairs, along with the accessibility of, like, let's just jump into a game for a little while, 15, 20 minutes, a half an hour, and play. The ease of access doesn't exist like that down here in the theater. So we find ourselves as a family, myself individually and my son and I, when we co-op or play something together, just naturally defaulting to wanting to do it in the living room anyway. But I like to have the reserved opportunity to be able to come down here and just fire something up with simplicity and convenience and ease of access and no mussing or fussing around. So hopefully this is a helpful topic for folks. What I'm actually going to be doing right after I film this video is pulling that PlayStation 5 out. Yes, it's going to go back to the store. I'm reaffirming myself to gaming on the PC. More about that in future content. But I will be looking to set up the splitter and do the same kind of video distribution, 2-zone access on the PC with the same device as I am doing it here with the PlayStation 5. So more on that and a little bit of the nuance perhaps involved with doing it on a PC. It's definitely a little bit easier to set things up and manage the operation and configuration of a console than a PC. But we did run it for a while, and the splitter does work very well also using the PC. So this is kind of an advanced topic. I hope it was helpful. If folks are trying to do advanced things in your setups like this, routing multiple rooms, how do I set this stuff up? How do I configure it? Keep in mind, I do offer consulting calls. I'm happy to do a paid consulting call with folks. They're universally beneficial. They've been a lot of fun. And if you're struggling with something, I can walk you through what you have, what you're trying to accomplish, and what devices, tools, configurations, and logistics you may want to use actually to make it work in certain ways. Reach out to me at Techthusiasm_JP at Outlook.com or through my website, JeremyPyle.com, if you want to get in touch and discuss that. Booking now. Otherwise, please do all that regular YouTube stuff. Like, subscribe, hit the bell, share the video, leave some comments, questions, let's discuss. And hey, if you'd like to support the channel, lots of ways to do that. If this was helpful to you, a PayPal tip, a super thanks, a Venmo tip is available. And above all, man, the best thing that you can do, the best way that you can help me out here is to shop with my affiliates. Audio Advice, Amazon, and others are down in the description. Follow the links. And if you need any direct referrals to pick up some awesome home theater or hi-fi or AV gear, reach out to me. Let me know. I can put you in touch with awesome folks that'll be guaranteed to give you great service and hopefully some awesome Techthusiasm pricing. Thanks so much for watching. Come on back for more home theater discussion and fun.